Today's race was Cyclocross Tokyo in Odaiba, just pretty central in Tokyo, so got a lot of people registered. There were about 100 people registered for the ME4 category today. That's the easy, or the amateur category. It was split into two groups, A and B, with 50 on the start list for each. I think only 42 people or so were actually at the starting line today, but still that makes for a pretty crowded race at this level. I think the higher categories had something like 80 people registered in each. This is going to be another short video today. My GoPro stopped recording maybe in the second lap. I'm not really sure why. I guess I'll figure it out when I watched through. This is my first time watching the video, so I'm seeing this all for the first time. Well, I guess the second time. First time off the bike. So I started out with wearing number 1, so I was in the front row. Let a few people slip ahead here. Then we were right off to this long beach section. I had some good speed coming through here. Not like that one guy out in front, but a bit of power though. It's sort of the early adrenaline surge. I was up to 600 or 700 watts earlier. Couldn't keep that up, so down to 300 or 400, but back up to 500 or so again now. That's really not going to be sustainable, but at this point I was out in front, and I guess I was thinking that this is hard enough to ride that I might as well just push through it as much as I can and hope that I can get a little bit of a lead through the beach section and create a little separation. Maybe I could rest in the dirt off-road sections later on. So again, I was able to carry some pretty good speed past him. I didn't notice in the pre-ride that there were any particular areas that were easier to ride than others. But on this first lap, the edge of the rideable area right up along the tape here seemed like it was the best. And I did have pretty good speed without crazy power here. So I was able to keep it up, but not really at a point where I could look back and see where everyone else was. In the moment, I just wanted to, again, get through this beach section with as much of an advantage as I could, and just hope that I wasn't digging myself into too deep of a hole. The next section after we get out of the sand didn't really require a lot of power, so I was hoping that I could take a little bit of a rest for my legs in those sections after powering through the beach. So there I've got a pretty good lead. I'm not sure how many seconds, but the one guy in orange is a little bit behind me. We're a little bit of a ways before he gets to that next group, and then another gap after the first 10 or so. So here I found some pretty good traction as well. There was some grass growing up through the sand up on this upper edge. So this time around, at least, I had pretty good speed. People cheering me on along the way. Yeah, I guess here is where it started to get a bit messier. So I fell off the bike there. Couldn't keep my footing. Looks like I hopped back on since I have some power output. But I think before long I guess I was able to make it through this section as well. Here, it was a little tough to climb up the left here, but there was more grass for traction, so it was a little bit of a trade-off. You know, putting in the power to get up to a rideable area rather than sort of grinding through the looser sand below. Yeah, I think this must be the section where I decided to jump off. Realized someone was catching up to me there. But by this point, my legs were just cooked, and riding through this loose sand just took too much out of me. So I threw the bike over my shoulder and just went into a light jog. Just after this turn here, we were off the beach. I was usually able to clip in on that little flat part there. And then here we're into a little bit of grass before some loose dirt here. Some pretty tight technical turns, so we definitely had to stay focused to avoid falling, slipping on roots. Today's course was pretty dry. In the dirt areas, the dirt was a little bit loose, so I was a little worried about traction in some areas. I didn't end up having much of a problem. I had a dry weather sort of flat terrain file tread tire on the back, mixed terrain tire on the front. I thought that would be the better combination for the sand. Ended up being fine in the other areas too. So the start line of the race was just off to the left there, and came into this straightaway. And then you see the finish line coming up with the sign over the top. So in the start lap, we took a right immediately, right here, off to the beach. But for the rest of the race, we came left here, hopped over these barriers, had a little more off-road section before coming back around to the beach. Not quite sure why they did it that way, but maybe they wanted to tire us out a bit at the start of the race. So it looks like I've slipped to third place at this point. My heart rate was, I guess, back under control, but my legs were a bit gassed. At some point later in the race, I think probably after the video stopped, my right rear shifter stopped working. So I was stuck in the largest sprocket in the back, unable to shift gears. That's probably better than the alternative, being stuck in the smallest, hardest gear. But there were a few sections where I just spun out and couldn't get as much speed as I wanted to. Little areas like this where limited by by being in that easiest gear. I think this brings us back around to the sand beach just after this turn. Saw a lot of that happening. Just so hard to stay upright on the sand. It's easy to overcorrect. You start going in one direction too much, bring the wheel back in the other direction, and the sand sort of blocks the your ability to make minor corrections, and just forces the tire further in the direction you don't want to go. So the second time through, I just couldn't find as good a path through, and again my legs were pretty cooked by this point. So the first lap through, I was able to ride through here at 400, 500, 600 watts or so. And I think before I jumped off the bike just there, I was not really much over 300. So without that extra power and speed, it's just not really possible to push through. So I tried a couple times, like there, to jump back on the bike. But again, with power down in the high 200s or so, I guess I made through a little bit here. I don't think it's going to last very long. No, so there I jumped off. Shouldered the bike here. Looks like the video clip's almost done. So I'm not sure what happens if somehow I jostled the camera there and hit it by accident. Doesn't look like it. But yeah, from here it all sort of went downhill. I wasn't able to keep up with those guys in front, even though I was still in the top 3 or so here. Ended up letting a few more people pass and finished, I think, 11th overall. So out of 40 or 50 people, not so bad, but not great either. So disappointing in such a big race. You know, it'd been great to get a top spot, but wasn't meant to be. Hopefully there will be 1 or 2 more that I join this year with a little better result. We'll see. Thanks for watching.